Hey, Mike, when you looked at the sacks last week, what was the main cause of the six sacks in that game?
Well, sacks again is like I said every single week. It's on everybody. It's on myself calling the right play at the right time. You take a guess with a team like that you're putting them on pressure, and more times than not, it's going to be pressure. They actually did a little bit less in their pressure package than we were prepared for. We were ready for all the zero stuff and all that, and they really didn't do too much. When you look at some of the pressures that happened in the second half, some of it was obviously starting with me with the play call and play design. Secondly, not getting the separation we needed within the time of the play, or the disappointing one that will always be the disappointing ones are the communication ones, the stuff that we can flat out control. And I thought that's what you saw in the second half. The stuff that we can control, in terms of communication, no matter how loud a place is, we didn't get that done, and it needs to get done. So I thought that was a great learning experience for Zach. I don't know if it was necessarily the loudest place he's been, but it certainly kind of felt that way in the second half in terms of how tight of a game it was, and how you have to be up and down from right tackle to left tackle. When you're cannon, you have to, in changing the play, and you have to have urgency to get from right tackle to left tackle, get back there, and then obviously get the snap off by the time the play clock goes out. So a lot of factors into it. To always start with me, but we can be much better than what we put out there.
Mike, how did you think Zach did? I mean, he looked good in the first half, and I know there was a lot of breakdowns in the second half, but how do you think he did on Sunday?
Yeah, Al, I mean, by no means perfect, obviously, but he played a good game. He got better in a number of areas. His tempo, his eyes, his ball placement was better because of kind of what I just said, with the tempo and eyes. Most importantly, and I know this is something that obviously we harp on him, hey, just be free and don't overanalyze, but that's got to come within, and he knows that, and he did, and he competed his butt off. I certainly didn't call a good enough game. We didn't play good enough around him, but in terms of him competing, which is what you expect from him, because that's who he is. He's an ultimate competitor, but it's hard to do that when you're a little bit locked up. And you're not playing as free as he wanted to. And I thought that's what you saw from him. He was playing free, and he was competing his butt off, and he made a number of plays, that there's too many breakdowns, and he made a number of plays to keep us in a situation where it wasn't catastrophic, so I was pleased from that. Still a lot to learn from, but I think probably because he played so free, it's probably the game he's learned the most from, because you can just almost take all that in.
Mike, I know, this is kind of one of those storylines that's going to be a part of this game against the Jaguars is the Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson thing. So I was wondering if you could just kind of take us back at all to when you first started studying Zach, at what point, because obviously, Robert had to get hired, you had to get hired as the offensive coordinator, but when was the first time you kind of started looking at him? And when was it that you thought that maybe you might have something special in your hands with the chance to draft him second overall?
You got a lot of hats back there, Connor. That is incredible, man.
Every golf course, man. Every golf course I play, I grab a new one.
I love it. No, that's a good question. It was pretty early when we got here. Obviously, when Robert got the job and hired me, Sam was the quarterback, and there was some studying to do there, and just all the options that were laid out on the table. We needed to do our due diligence. Can I put a specific date on it? No, but it was earlier than, it was very, very early. It was probably in that first week I was here. I was obviously watching Sam, but then popping on, those 5 quarterbacks that all were potential. We talked about it earlier than I'd ever, in any building I've ever been a part of. And there were times in San Francisco where, a quarterback was up for discussion, particularly in 2017. We traded for Jimmy later in the year. So kind of after that, there was no quarterback in discussion from the draft, but it was early. And then when you pop on the tape, it's what you guys have all seen and what you guys have talked about and what I've talked about. I mean, the natural ability was there. The competitiveness was there, the natural thrower, and we felt like it was going to translate to the league, and still do. And really, not to sound overconfident, but I know it will. It's going to be a matter of time. And, he's, again, I think he's improving each and every week, whether the naked eye can see it or not. But I know he's getting more and more comfortable. And it's another thing, just for him, there'll never be an excuse because this league, particularly right now, I mean, every roster is different every week. But for a rookie, not having the continuity each and every single week, even remotely close to the continuity that you would want. He hasn't had that, and it hasn't bothered him at all. He's going to go out there, and his mindset is, I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability, and I think he's working to do that.
Mike, the play call late in the second quarter, before halftime, the pass to Crowder, then he throws it across to Berrios on the 3rd and long. That's one I've never seen before. What's kind of the history behind that play, and how long have you guys been sitting on that one?
We like 4 or 5 weeks. We had it in the first time versus Miami for the reasons that we called it. Just playing that kind of universal fence type defense in terms of or chains type defense. But the reason you can call those kind of plays, you got a guy like Jameson Crowder and Braxton Berrios that we have so much trust in. So even if it wasn't going to be perfect, which there was a lot of looks that were not going to be perfect, and you call the play, and it's not like we can just burn a timeout on 3rd and 15 because it's like you're just going to kind of eat it at that point because the percentages are so low. But it was the look, and even if it was close, just putting the ball in Jameson Crowder's hands, usually something good's going to happen. And then on top of it, getting the ball to a guy like Braxton Berrios, who I think is really coming into his own in terms of not only on offense, but obviously as a returner. When you have those kind of guys, in my opinion, you can do kind of stuff like that. The one earlier that Braxton scored on, that was supposed to be a double pass as well. But there was a kind of a run pass option, like, hey, Brax, if it doesn't look good, just go make a play, and he did, and that's those guys just out there executing. That was really cool to watch them do that.
Is that
aside from that
one? Sorry, Connor. Mike? Is that something you came up with, 4 or 5 weeks ago, or is that something that you've seen before, or a lot of times plays have a history? Was that something new?
I think we did an Air Force football in gym class when I was in the 11th grade. But no, we as a staff, just as we were coming up with a 3rd down plan, I mean, we throw our ideas out there and we try to fine tune it to what we believe is gives our guys the best chance.
Mike, I think that was obviously one of the more interesting trick plays, but you guys dialed up, I think, at least 3 other ones at different points in that game. And I think this season, when you look at its totality, you guys have called more trick and interesting plays than I can ever remember a Jets offensive play caller calling before. So I was just wondering what kind of, sort of what Kaz said, which is, where do you come up with these ideas for those trick plays? And is the abundance that you're running this season, is that just kind of a staple of yours? Because this is the first time you've really called plays. So is it something you like diving into?
It's not something that I've been totally accustomed to. I mean, we didn't do that very often in Atlanta and San Francisco. Again, it goes back to the answer one of your questions. I mean, a lot of those plays, you see someone else do something like it, and you kind of fine tune it to your players and what you're going against. I mean, a double pass is a double pass, and a toss back to the quarter. Like, everyone's done it at some point. You just try to fine tune it. Maybe the Jameson one to Braxton was a hair different, but I think it goes back to every year is going to be a little bit different when you have Jameson and a guy like Braxton, and then also, not to dive any further just because those are the 2 names, but a few other guys that we have a lot of trust in to do some of those plays, because things close fast in this league, as you know, and you got to have guys that literally just, they don't blink and their heart rate doesn't go up. And Jameson in that situation was the calmest human you could ever imagine. When you got guys barreling down on him, it almost kind of felt walkthrough-ish to him. It's pretty cool. So, I guess it's kind of been a little bit of a staple for ours right now. Players do, appreciate them, and if they don't work, then you kind of gotta have to live with it. You look like a dummy, but fortunately our players have made them come to life a little bit.
Mike, how much more comfortable are you calling those plays now, just in general? Because I know early on you were hard on yourself when the offense wasn't moving, And now it's definitely, moving a little better and you're able to pull these things out. How much more comfortable are you doing this now?
Calling trick plays or just in general?
Just in general, I mean, the offense, I think you would agree, is a little better than what it was earlier in the year. And that could just be Zach's comfort level too. I mean, it could be a combination of everything.
Yeah, I mean, just like, like I said, you obviously naturally get more and more comfortable. I think our guys have gotten more and more comfortable with this offense. I thought we really hit a stride there. But again, I don't know. I don't think too much of it. I know it sounds cliche, but you're just so focused on the present week right now and trying to get your players in the best position to go out and be successful and make plays. And, the stuff that I think about and the rest of our staff think about is how can we get some of the stuff corrected? And no matter who's out there, like it's a revolving door of guys right now up front, receivers, obviously the backs a few weeks ago. I mean, it's insane, and the numbers show it. We're the most injured team in ball right now. And then obviously we got COVID rolling through. But it is what it is. And anyone that we put on the field, we have A, confidence in, and B, pride that we're going to be able to execute the stuff that we can control. And that's where my focus goes with these guys is how can we be the best we can be each and every single week, no matter who's out there. It does not matter if you're in our uniform. We expect good things to happen. And, we continue to work on that and build our standard for this week, but for a lot of weeks.
We'll take a couple more questions for Coach.
Mike, it's been clear at times this year that Zach's kind of been struggling between operating the offense and running around and making plays like he did at BYU. Do you think he looked a little more comfortable Sunday in that kind of balance when, the throwback play where he didn't catch the ball clean, he kind of scrambled around and found Griffin, and then also the third down run, the 6-yard run where he kind of made something happen? Do you think he's sort of getting a little more comfortable in that balance?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's, and again, that was something he was very open about going into last week, that he wanted to play free. And we want him to be Zach Wilson. We don't want him to be anybody else but him. And there's a foundation that any good, successful offense is going to have, period. So you got to play within that foundation, because when you're calling plays, if everything's perfect and I call the right one, you just expect it to, and then everyone's doing their thing, you expect it to work. But I'm not going to call the right play all the time. The guy is going to miss his block. A receiver isn't going to get separation. How can you make either a bad play not as worse, or within a time of a play, go out and make a play, and that's just something that just comes with time. Even as silly as this might sound, like when we're in our walkthroughs in the 2-minute, but before you guys get out there, it is a jog through at the highest level. I mean, it is, some guys are almost dang near walking, and those are incredible learning experiences for them, because I'm calling plays that is attacking the defense we're going against, but we're actually still going against our defense, which is a little bit different. So yeah, I called that, but our defense doesn't react to it like that. So how can you just go out and play, and it's such a good time for him just to be free, and him and I have those talks, and so, it's been cool to watch, it's him just kind of mature through this thing. And again, it's every week is just another challenge for him.
Mike, you mentioned the COVID issues. What have the last few days been like, just with more players going in, and then Robert yesterday?
Yeah, you kind of numb to it, particularly now that we're all virtual anyways. But it's flashbacks to last year. I mean, it's the whole world's going through it, so it doesn't really matter. But last year we thought was in the rearview mirror in terms of how we were handling this thing. Obviously in San Francisco, the last 5 weeks we got kicked out of California and went down to Arizona, which was a whole nother story. I mean, that was absolutely insane. And here we are right now in the league and all the country, the world, wherever, going through this again. And so it is what it is. Again, I'd say we're numb to it. We're used to it. Our video department's used to it in terms of getting all this thing set up. And then, you honestly go out to practice, you're like, all right, who's going to be out there today? Obviously, we go through our rundown at our 7:30 staff meeting, but things can change from 7:30 to noon. It could change every 10 minutes right now, just by a guy not feeling well, getting tested, boom, he pops. And so you just kind of run with it. No one really cares. We just have to go. And that's